Ferrari fans called Nigel Mansell Il Leone. Now, I'm no language guru, but that either translates as the lion or someone called Leon that is ill. Now, whatever the state of Leon's health is, I'm going with the lion, and I think I'm right, and will in this video attempt to have a look at the career of the British driver who, while maybe not the greatest of all time, certainly had a set of cojones the size of beach balls. Now, first things first, as a young fan, I utterly despised Nigel Mansell and his arrogant moustache. Who was this a-hole with the audacity to beat Senna's McLaren? Well, later on I realized that the owner of this marvelous moustache, which I still desire to emulate to this day, was one of the truly great characters of the sport. A man without the ability to give up, whether it was trying to push his Lotus over the line.
But right at the end, Nigel Mansell's pushing in this searing heat, and surely that's too much even for him. And it is. He's fainted, and past him to 5th place goes Ghinzani in the Osella.
Or coming back from being destroyed by Prost in the same cars at Ferrari to winning one of the most dominant world drivers titles in history at Williams in 1992. This is Nigel Mansell. Born in 1953, I firmly believe sporting a stunningly hairy upper lip even at birth, Mansell went on to race in Formula 1 for 15 seasons before being ridiculously let go by the then dominant Williams team in a car designed by Adrian Newey.
Corporate called, you're fired.
Oh dear.
So what did Nige do? He promptly left for IndyCar, then called Kart Series, and won the title over there as well. Yes, he had some less successful attempts to return to Formula 1, but the man was in his 40s and seemed to rather enjoy the odd kilogram or two of garage pies by the size of his stomach, so that doesn't count. The start. Before making it to Formula 1, Mansell suffered an accident at Brands Hatch in Formula Ford, and I have to quote his Wikipedia page to stress the following to show you the pure ballsiness of this man. I quote, "Doctors told him he had been perilously close to quadriplegia, that he would be confined for 6 months and would never drive again." Mansell discharged himself from the hospital and returned to racing. 3 weeks before the accident, he had resigned from his job as an aerospace engineer, having previously sold most of his personal belongings to finance his foray into Formula Ford. Later that year, he was given the chance to race a Lola, a Formula 3 car at Silverstone. He finished 4th and decided that he was ready to move to a higher Formula. End quote. During a spell in Formula 3, he had another massive crash, this time with Andrea de Cesaris, cartwheeling his car, breaking vertebrae, and being said to have been lucky to survive in the days before Halo. Not long after this accident, Mansell was invited for a tryout at Lotus by the legendary Colin Chapman. Nige had to pop painkillers to appear healthy and still performed well enough to become their new test driver. Now, Lotus was a proper and popular British team led by proper tea-drinking, cucumber sandwich-eating Brits, and Nige donned his greatest Union Jack boxers and battled for them from 1980 to 84. Yeah, he was only the test driver for 1980, but he made his racing debut at the Austrian GP. A fuel leak in the cockpit that developed before the race left him with painful 1st and 2nd degrees burns on his bum, and his engine failed, costing him his first couple of race finishes. Andretti, Mario that is, left the team at the end of the season, and Nige was promoted to take his place for 1981. His 4 seasons at Lotus didn't go that stunningly. He struggled to match teammate Elio De Angelis for pace, and the Lotus was far from the dominant beast it had been in the 1970s. Struggling for reliability throughout his time at the team, Nigel Mansell started 59 races for Lotus, but finished only 24. Failing to win a race, but finishing 3rd 5 times. Some Lando vibes there. In 1982, team boss and visionary Colin Chapman passed away, and it hit Mansell hard. Mansell was quoted as saying, "The bottom dropped out of my world. Part of me died with him. I had lost a member of my family." End quote. Chapman had treated Nigel as co-team number 1 despite being outperformed by De Angelis. But replacement boss Peter Waugh saw De Angelis as the undisputed number 1, and to be fair, he did outperform the mighty Moustache during their time together. Although De Angelis did get better parts and the superior engine at times. In 1984, Nigel achieved his first pole position, but he was sacked for 85 to be replaced by some Brazilian kid called Senna, a rivalry which would get interesting later on. Williams, the first time. For 85, Frank Williams assembled the hairiest-faced team in history. Mansell would partner Keke Rosberg, owner of the second greatest mustache ever in Formula 1, and dad to Nico, I beat Lewis in equal machinery Rosberg. I'm pretty sure they wanted to race bare-chested, sporting some gold chains. But even back then the FIA was just no fun, so they forced the Williams boys to wear race suits. This was also the first time Mansell would race with a red number 5 on his car. That same red number 5 that would torment my young dreams in 1992. During practice for the 85 French Grand Prix, Mansell crashed again, this time at 322 km an hour, breaking the record for the highest speed crash then in Formula 1 history. It seemed to motivate the man though. He finished second at Spa and finally, after 72 starts, won a race at the European Grand Prix at Brands Hatch in England, promptly also winning the next one at Kyalami as well, back when Formula 1 still had the brains to run a South African Grand Prix. Frank Williams and Nigel Mansell turned out to be one of the iconic Formula 1 team boss driver duos, something like Senna and Ron Dennis, Schumacher and Ross Brawn, Max and Horner, Hamilton and Toto Wolff, or Steiner and anybody. But things were very rarely smooth sailing at the Mansell-Williams combo. For example, in 86, Frank Williams teamed Mansell up with multiple World Drivers champion Nelson Piquet, and sparks flew. Piquet versus Mansell became one of the hottest teammate battles in the sport ever. Yes, on the track, the 86 Williams was quick. Mansell finished second to Senna in the Spanish Grand Prix at Jerez in one of the tightest race finishes ever, 0.014 seconds behind his old car. The mighty Moustache led the Drivers' Championship through most of the year, and with the title showdown in Australia, it was between himself, teammate Piquet, and Alain Prost in the McLaren. It wasn't to be though, and the man's terrible luck reared its mother-in-law-like head once again as he blew a tyre, leaving Prost the champion. In 1987, Mansell won 6 races and was looking like a potential champion until he crashed heavily in quali at Suzuka, injuring his back and ending his season, leaving teammate Piquet with 2 races to seal the title, which he duly did. The two of them were at war, and some less than nice things were said by Max's daddy-in-law about, among other things, Mansell's poor wife. Let's have a look at that.
Eu me lembro que fizeram assim, você, pra quem se dedica o campeonato? Eu dedico pra mim mesmo, pô, foi o que eu ganhei, pô, vou dedicar pra quem, pô?
Quadra.
O Mansell também é um idiota veloz, né? Pô, primeiro, ele joga golfe, eu jogo tênis. Segundo, ele gosta de mulher feia, eu gosto de mulher bonita. Terceiro, eu ganhei 3 campeonatos do mundo.
In 1988, Piquet left with Honda power for Lotus. Williams was nowhere near the pace, and Nigel only finished 2 of the 14 races in which he took part, missing the others due to complications from chickenpox. He duly left to become the very rarest thing in Formula 1, an Englishman driving for Ferrari, where he would first partner Gerhard Berger. Ferrari, the fans loved Mansell at Maranello because he always seemed to give it all in a typically fearless way. Mansell was the last driver Enzo Ferrari signed before passing away himself in 1988, and Mansell won his first race for Ferrari at Brazil in 1989. Even though the car would prove unreliable, he also won in Hungary and ended the year 4th in the title race. For 1990 though, things would get complicated. Prost and Berger swapped seats, and poor Nigel Mansell would come up against a master politician in the Frenchman, becoming the team's number 2 driver as Prost joined as a world champion from McLaren. The car proved unreliable again, and as Wikipedia puts it, and I quote, Mansell recalls one incident where at the 1990 British Grand Prix, the car he drove didn't handle the same as in the previous race where he had taken pole position. On confronting the mechanics, it transpired that Prost saw Mansell as having a superior car, and as a result they were swapped without telling Mansell. End quote. They didn't even bother telling him. Man, he must have been fuming, and for his home race as well. He won in Portugal and duly announced his retirement at the end of the season. But how? the man hadn't yet won a World Drivers' Championship. This is how Frank Williams stepped in and brought Mansell as undisputed #1 driver and Renault power back to Williams in what would prove an inspired choice. 1991 was good. He won 5 and ended the season second in what seemed to be the quickest car at the end of the year, with Senna winning the title. Then came 1992, the season that would kill my childhood innocence and give me repeated nightmares of that flipping blue and yellow machine with that red number 5. Mansell didn't just start the season, he dominated it, winning the first 5 races in a row. Senna and McLaren could do nothing, and it was only at Monaco that the Brazilian could use the narrow track and the full extent of his driving genius to finally break the streak, driving for what seemed to be an eternity at the end of the race, with that number 5 all over the back of his car. Mansell won 9 out of 16 in 1992. He qualified on pole 14 times. It's madness. At 39 years of age, he was finally the champion. Quoting Wikipedia again, other Formula 1 records set in 92 that he still holds are the highest percentage of pole positions in the season, 88%, the most runner-up championship finishes before becoming world champion, 3. Mansell also holds a record for obtaining pole positions and scoring the fastest lap and subsequently retiring from the race in the 87 German, 90 British, 92 Japanese and 92 Italian Grand Prix. He is the driver having the most wins, 31, without ever winning at Monaco. End quote. Surely he would retain his title in 1993. Who could stop him? Well, a combination of Prost and Frank Williams, that's who. See this interview Senna did about it.
The one thing all I would say is that this is supposed to be a World Drivers' Championship. We had 2 fantastic championships, sport championships, last year and this year. And we had, in my opinion, 2 very bad ones in '89 and 1990. And they were a consequence of unbelievable politics going on and a bad behavior by some people. And I think now we are coming back to the same situation again. It's impossible to accept somebody to come to a team February in the year with a signed contract, veto myself and himself too, and eventually they change his side but stay with the veto on myself. And I think if Prost wants to be called the sole champ and 3 times world champ and come back in a sportive way, maybe win another championship, he should be sportive. The way he's doing, he's behaving like a coward.
Williams bumped Nigel after the dominant season, and Prost was signed, and that was that. Nigel left to win the IndyCar title, but of course that just wasn't the same. In '94, Senna tragically died in the Williams and was replaced by young David Coulthard. But for the last few races of the year, Mansell piloted the Williams and managed a final victory in the last race of the season, that race where Schumacher of course took out heel to win the title. Mansell won his last victory aged 41 years. He joined McLaren for '95, but that was a horrible idea. The man was in poor shape and he couldn't fit in the car. They lubed him or something, I don't know, made the car wider, and he did compete in a few races, but he soon called it quits, retiring from the sport during the season. He was linked with Jordan for '97, but the man remained retired. Nigel Mansell proved to be a true giant of the sport, a huge fan favorite, and finished his career, unfortunately, in a sad way. Staying on when that win in Adelaide would have been a perfect send-off. But who can blame a fighter for not knowing when to stop fighting? A legend of the sport, and one that will never be forgotten. Mansell remains the Briton with the second highest amount of race wins, with his 31 wins only surpassed by Lewis Hamilton. He remains the last driver to win a race aged over 40, a record that seems to be the aim of both Alonso and Hamilton in the future. I don't know if they'll break it though. A giant on and off the track, and a pleasure to do a video about. I sincerely hope that you enjoyed our effort, and I hope it did Nigel Mansell proud. And I humbly implore you to consider subscribing and sharing the video to friends. Thank you for spending some time in our company. May God bless you. Goodbye.